And when I found out I had to worship God on the last day of the week today, and not on the first day, Sunday, it was an eye-opener. I mean, I couldn't believe it. The reason of many of the commandments in the Torah, they're beyond your comprehension. No, they're not. Stay close to the tree of life. Good morning to all of you. One of the things we have to do is stay close to God. And I spoke about 3 months ago, and I spoke about sticking close to the tree, not going out on a limb. And that's a reference to the 10 Commandments. We were given those through Israel coming out of Egypt, and not going out on a limb. In other words, don't get picky. And this week, I want to go through some of the problems of the first Sabbath-keeping church I attended. Now, I've been doing this 50-some years. And in the beginning was a little bumpy, to say the least. Part of the church's problem is making rules, extra rules beside the 10 that they expected us to keep. Many times there is no need to make complex rules. You know here not to lie, cheat, steal, love your neighbor. And sometimes you cannot improve on God's laws as they are written. Men and women seem to want to clarify some way simple rules that we are expected to live by. And that's normal. We do that at Bible study here. We sort through it and try and make our lives better. I want you I don't have many scriptures today, but in Psalms 34:14, I use this at a funeral Monday. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace. We're instructed. And David wrote this, and he's going to be our king, one of them over Israel. And pursue it. Peace is so important. In the early days of my conversion and understanding, I have seen many changes to rules that seem to make people uncomfortable. And sometimes they clarify a problem to make you feel good. Just what we sort through in life. And when I found out I had to worship God on the last day of the week today, and not on the first day, Sunday, it was an eye-opener. I mean, I couldn't believe it. All the churches in our little town were Sunday. Yeah. And I didn't know of a church that kept Saturday. How could this be? So I started going to a Sabbath-keeping church. Problem solved. I had to drive about 120 miles to go to Sacramento. Problem fixed, right? No. Because this church did not have a perfect understanding about God's laws and requirements. They were kind of strict, they were firm, and they were exacting, requiring you to keep the law. Understand, there was no help at that time. Even large libraries had little reference books for Bibles, for that history. And the only thing they had in common was encyclopedias and Britannica and the Funk and Wagnall and many more. There's no computers. Nothing. There's nothing you could dial up and do reference work. You had a few flyers from a church, and that's it. So those were difficult times for me. So I started reading the Bible seriously. And first problem I ran across, I started in the New Testament, was the Sabbath day's journey. Now here's a green guy. Sabbath day's journey. And I lived 100 and some miles away, so I didn't have much to go on. But let's go to Acts 1 and 12. Acts 1, 12. So you see if it comes up. For you all you out there in computer land, we have a screen here. 1 and 12. Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is from Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey, only found once in the Bible. One time. And I read that and said, wow, maybe I shouldn't be traveling like I do. And there's a problem with that. At the time, it was 120 miles to go to church. And then once I started college, went back there, it was 8 miles from the apartment where I had with my buddy, and we would go to church. 8 miles. Okay. The distance permitted by Jewish custom, it's a custom, folks. That's what I want to zero in today. Not law from God, but customs. It's fun to look at. For travel on the Sabbath day, see Exodus 16:29, Numbers 35 and 5, Joshua 3 and 4. And I got this from one of the Jewish websites. And it's about a Sabbath day journey is 1,000 paces. Well, I had to go miles to go to college, and to go to church was 8 miles downtown Sacramento. So what you have to do is you have to dig sometime. Don't listen to everything we print and say. Dig. Think about it. Meditate. And go for it. It doesn't hurt you. I love the computer because you can crank in a question and it'll come up. You know. How's Denver football team doing? Yeah. 0. They're out. Anything is on there. And I mean anything. So we went from that, and I finally solved the problem. It's a tradition of the Jewish community. And that's a good place to start. Second thing that happened, going to church, women could not wear makeup of any kind. Okay. I asked, and this was what I was told, and I think we publish brochures that follow this same line. Because the Egyptian women wore makeup. Now, they got this. This has nothing to do with makeup or people's attitude. It has to do with referencing what happened years ago in Egypt when they came out. Apparently, Egyptian women wore makeup. Big deal. It has nothing to do with the problem. In fact, there wasn't a problem. They made a problem. So, other churches, Pentecostal, Baptists, some Baptists, they couldn't wear makeup at the time. Strict to the law. And they made the law. Okay, so people left the church. Now, and they changed, said, well, women could wear makeup. And a few days later, women couldn't wear makeup. And more people left the church. And it was quite a spectacle, but it happened. I lived it. All about lipstick. And finally, they allowed women to wear makeup. Good. Good. My grandmother used to say, well, before we leave, I got to put on my war paint. And that was her makeup. She was a great, great grandmother. Okay. Pentecost, another problem. Pentecost was kept on Monday. By counting 50 in our church, always ended on the Monday. And that was right because it was not on Sunday. We keep Pentecost now on Sunday. Why? Because if you count right, and I'll get to that, it's right. But I remember ministers standing up week after week and say, well, Sunday is a pagan holiday, right? Sure. But it couldn't be on Sunday because it's Sunday. And we keep Sabbath. And it went on and on. And there was so much disagreement in our church among the ministries and the people. More people quit. Oop. They just quit coming. Said, you guys can't make up your mind. And they were right. Can't make up their mind. So finally, the head of our church went to Hollywood or Beverly Hills somewhere. And made an appointment. Went over there with a couple people, ministers, and they talked to a rabbi, the head rabbi of that area, and they got insight in what was right. What was the problem? The problem was depending on which Bible you read, it could be Sunday or Monday. And also the problem is none of them spoke Hebrew or Greek. How many people here speak Hebrew or Greek? I had a student work for me later. His name was Harry Eisenberg. Wonderful, wonderful man. And Harry said when he finished college in California, he said, I'm going to go home and learn to speak Hebrew. I'm going to go to school. And he did. I heard he did. Good for him. And sometimes, again, you must dig and research to find the answer. We're supposed to be able to give an answer. And that's true. And by the way, this year, Pentecost is on June the 16th, Father's Day. So all the fathers, we lucked out. We can come to church. We'll see. That was another crossroad. Birthdays. Some of us here celebrate birthdays. Some don't. The word birthday is found 3 times in 3 areas of the Bible. 3 times, actually. Birthday or birthdays. Genesis 40 and 20, and it was Pharaoh's birthday, and no good came of it. Man lost his life because it was the Pharaoh's birthday. Matthew 14:6 and Mark 6:21. Herod had a birthday party, and in the birthday party, his daughter would dance, or did dance, and he was probably a little drunk, and he was made this proclamation: I'll give you anything you want, even half my kingdom. So she went to her mother and said, what should I ask for? Man, I can make some bucks here. And her mother said, John the Baptist, I want his head on a platter. And that's what happened. John the Baptist, who was in prison, lost his head. Now, from that, some Pentecostal churches, and my family went to one for a while, teach, do not dance, because the daughter danced and John lost his head. So dancing is a sin. Huh? See how this progresses? Logical thinking. There's no logic to it. No logic at all. And I used to not keep my birthday, and I don't want anything on my birthday because I'm old, and I hate birthdays. Don't I? I don't. I'll tell you one thing. I wished I'd have sent my mom a card on my birthday so she could have read it, and I'd have said, thanks for having me, Mom. I was a rotten child, but I love you. I never did. Thought about it many times. There's something for you to do. But it's not religious either way. There is no place that says don't celebrate birthdays. And I remember people leaving the church, quit their job, because we celebrated birthdays or didn't celebrate our birthdays. See? It's silly. And that's some of it. I wanted to lead you through that. And I might add to that, but for some time, people were very vocal about it. Very vocal. You know, I remember when my boys, the oldest turned 13, and I knew Jews and I knew a bar mitzvah, and so we bought Eddie a special present and had a nice meal, and he'd cook something, whatever he liked. I don't remember, but we didn't have a bar mitzvah for him, but we had something special, because in tradition, again, that's when you come of age, when you're 13, 14, and Mark can help me with that. Should have called you. But you get the idea. And a bat mitzvah, B-A-T, is the coming of age of Jewish women, a young girl. And they have, Spanish has their thing. I can't recall. But I want to look at a pagan custom. And I did my research, and I picked this out, of how men try to make clear, to make it more complete, certain principles. Okay. In Exodus 23 and 19. Can you catch that? 23 and 19. Okay. The first of the fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in its mother's milk. Okay? It's in the Bible. You can read it. I hope you do. There it is. And what that word seethe, it means to boil, cook it, bring it into boil. And that's how you cook it. And it's Hebrew. It's Bashal, B-A-S-H-A-L, Bashal. And I wonder if that's like the French make a gravy, Bashal. Am I saying that right? No? Okay. Well, you figure it out. It's a gravy. If you ever watch Jacques Pepin, you'll see it. He makes gravy and Bashal. Okay. That's Exodus 23 and 19. So you go to Exodus 34. That's pretty simple, isn't it? I read it to you. Do you get it? Don't boil a young born lamb in its mother's milk. Don't do that. Exodus 34:26. The first of the first fruits of thy land you shall bring into the house of the Lord thy God. You shall not seethe, there again, don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. So that's two places. Don't do it. Does that, you understand that? Yeah, sure you do. Exodus 34:27. And the Lord said unto Moses, write you these words. And after the tenor, and that's out of his mouth, out of these words. So God spoke these words. It's from breath is what that word means, T-E-N-O-R. I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. He said to Moses, by my breath, I spoke this to you. Do you understand? Pretty serious. When God nails it down. Okay, so let's go to Deuteronomy 14:21. Deuteronomy 14:21. This is interesting to me. We have chickens, and one thing I've learned about chickens, they're healthy, and they lay eggs. They'll come to you when you feed them, and they also fall over. They just die. They're amazing. They just out pecking around, boop, and they're gone. They're dead. Deuteronomy 14:21. You shall not eat anything that died of itself. So, you find a dead chicken in my place out, don't eat it. But you shall give it unto a stranger that is in the gates, that he may eat it. I wouldn't eat it. Or thou may sell it unto an alien, for you are a holy people unto the Lord thy God. That sets you apart. See what he did? He set it apart. You could sell it, you could give it, but you don't eat it. Not that you can't, because the other fellows did, or ladies, and cooked it up, and they lived. But it sets you apart. And then it says, thou shalt not seethe or boil a kid in his mother's milk. And then in 22, thou shalt truly tithe of the increase that it goes off, of the seed of the field, bring forth by the end of the year, by the year. You see, it's found three places. Now, it's pretty simple. Did you get that? Well, if you have a lamb, don't do that. Don't put it in its mother's milk. So, like I said, I love the computer now when it works. So I went to this website called Ask a Rabbi a Question. Ask a rabbi a question. So here we go, I like this. The title is, Why Do We Not Mix Milk and Meat? Okay. Excuse me. They can't eat a hamburger, a good kosher-keeping Jew. They cannot eat a hamburger in good conscience. Why? Because it's got cheese, or the mayonnaise and stuff. But it's got cheese, good hamburger from McDonald's, and meat. Can't do it. Now, let me read from this Ask a Rabbi a Question. One of the important aspects of observing kosher is keeping milk and meat properly separated. So I was in a home once, and they had a refrigerator, and it said, in Hebrew, meat and milk, and there were two separated. There's two refrigerators. This prohibition is derived from the verse, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. We read that. This verse appears in the Torah 3 times, twice in Exodus 23:19 and 34:26, and once in Deuteronomy 14:21. I read all those to you. According to Jewish tradition. Then a second paragraph. According to Jewish tradition, from the Talmud, Chilion 113b, the Hebrew word G-di, kid goat, is understood to mean any young domestic animal, not only a kid goat. The repetition of this verse teaches us that it is not only forbidden to cook meat and milk together, but it's also forbidden to eat or derive the benefit from the mixture. In fact, the Torah forbids the cooking, eating, and benefit of the meat of any kosher demonstrated animal in any kosher milk. The Torah simply gives an example of the kid in its mother's milk because that was a common practice in ancient times. Okay, second paragraph. Now let's go to the third. Some Jewish authorities give reason for this prohibition. One reason given is that it's cruel to cook a baby in the very milk that is intended to nourish it. I agree with that. The Torah forbids the cooking and consumption of any milk with any meat to prevent one from cooking a kid in its mother's milk. Well, that's not the only reason. According to Kabbalah, meat represents G-E-V-U-R-A-H. And this is what meat represents, the divine attribute of judgment. Okay? And milk represents cheese, that the divine attribute of kindness. These two opposites characteristics are not to be mixed with each other. Did you follow that? I've read that several times and I'm still having trouble with it. None of these reasons are fully satisfactory. Get that? None of the reasons are satisfactory. And it is clear that this falls in the category of mizitza, that have no satisfactory reason. There's no reason for this. C-H-U-M-I-N. Chuman, the reason of many of the commandments in the Torah are beyond our comprehension. They're beyond your comprehension. No, they're not. This allows for our acceptance of a higher reason and the realization that our comprehension is limited. You're limited. Only they can tell you what to do. See, that's like when I first started. We don't do that. That's why we have Bible studies. I'm sorry we have to drop them, but I'm not well lately. Okay. I read that to you. You're bored to tears, I can see. Then Nita found this. I couldn't find it. It's a website. Why would anyone ever consider cooking a young goat in mother's milk? Good question. Why did God bring this to the Israelites' attention? He told them 3 times. He told us 3 times. Why would they even think of doing such a thing? Even if they did, what would be wrong with it? According to various Bible commentaries, the pagans of that era, of the area, had a fertility rite. Here we go. Which involves boiling a kid in its mother's milk and sprinkling the broth as the magic charm on their gardens and fields. They did this in the hope of increasing the yield of their crops. And that's from the treasury of scriptural knowledge. It says about that. And there's another place, but now this is a quote from this Dr. Cudworth. The true sense of this passage seems to be that a sign from AMS, I don't know what that is, comment of the Karaite Jew, it is a custom of the ancient heathens. He nailed it. When they had gathered in their fruits, see, it's to take the place of the Feast of Tabernacles, is what they did. And the Buddhists have a ritual about that in the fall of the year where they go down to the ocean and they light incense and things, and it's to also take the place of the Feast of Tabernacles. Anyway, to take a kid and boil it in the dam's, in other words, mother's milk. And then, in a magical way, to go about and sprinkle on their trees, fields, and gardens, and orchards with it, thinking that by these means they should make them fruitful and bring forth more abundantly in the following year. It's just a pagan thing. That's all it is. But did you hear this rabbi who wrote this? Or he probably had help. It was terrible. Therefore, God forbid his people at the time of their ingathering to use such superstition and idolatrous rite. God has warned his people against following the heathen's customs. And we don't. We don't do Christmas and Easter's coming up and all this other stuff. And I'm just remind you of what I went through to sort things out. And you may have to too, but we're trying our best not to do that. Now, Christ did a little work for us. In Matthew 22:37, Matthew 20, Jesus Christ, he was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he broke it down. This is really good, because he could have picked one of the commandments, but what he did, he combined them. Matthew 22:37. Jesus said unto him, you shall love, what's the greatest commandment? Here what it is. You shall love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. There it is. What's the second? And the second is like unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. in Matthew 22:40. Of these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Of those two. All this hangs on that. And it also hangs on us getting into the kingdom of God. That's what we have to do. And instead of chasing around after a Sabbath day's journey or birthdays or whatever, we need to look at these commandments. And I really like that. Now, at the beginning of the week, I had to go down and I spoke at Louise Ledger's funeral. And I got a call, I told you this, Tracy, their daughter, Della Louise's daughter, that she asked me if I would speak. Of course, I said yes. And we talked several times on the phone. And Tracy wanted to she pressed that way. She wanted to keep the service short. And I didn't know it till after the funeral, after it all was done. And we were out at the casket in the cemetery. And Louise asked for me to speak at her funeral. And I did not know it till Tracy told me then. It's done. And the casket's ready to be lowered and that sort of thing. So Tracy told me that. And I felt so humbled. Now, a minister told me at a mixed service where your audience is converted, so part of them's converted and understands, and part of them is unconverted. They don't get it. You can talk all day and you're wasting your time. He said, don't quote whole verses and chapters, but keep it short and to the point. And I did. And the reason I did, before the funeral, we went down and we were in the back, and Tracy, the funeral director, and myself, we stood in the back door at the back, and we discussed how the funeral should proceed. And she was still wanting not a lot of scriptures and not a lot of talk. And I did that. And there was they wanted the songs, and they were great. They fit Louise and Dell perfectly. I think it was Walking Back to Texas or Dancing in Texas. It was, what it was? Waltz Across Texas. Boy, is that Louise with that little accent she had. But it turned out fine. We did it. And I told, she told me, Tracy said on the phone before, the day or two before, she said, now pray for good weather. It's not going to be good. And I said, okay. We had perfect weather. Perfect. No wind, cool. It was just a beautiful day. See the mountains? It cleared up. And I remind her of that. So why did I do this? Why did I go through this? Sometimes you need to keep it simple. Keep your life simple, but keep what God gives you simple. He wrote that. Don't boil a little baby goat in milk. And that's it. He didn't elaborate because They knew. Those people knew. They just came out of bondage. So try to think things through. Keep it simple. And keep on trucking. Don't give up. Stay close to the tree of life. That's the 10 Commandments. Stay close to your Bible, and you will succeed. And remember this, the commandments written in stone by the finger of God, with Moses there to witness it.
You have received this information based upon the Word of God. Every additional topic concerning the truth, which originates in Scripture, builds understanding leading to salvation. We hope you will personally review the Scriptures cited in this presentation. God will teach you if you ask Him. Until next time, good day.